Good day, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Living on Purpose, the show about intentionally creating the life you deserve. I'm your host, Mark Barton, author of the Living on Purpose course and owner of Bottom for the Win LLC. If you find value in something in this show, please use the contact information to connect with me to discuss how happiness success cycle based coaching or training can benefit you or your organization. And now, on with the show. Last week we talked about one of my favorite topics, building accountability, and I explained the benefits of creating effective accountability systems. This week, we're going to go back a few steps in the happiness success cycle method and talk about defining your success, or as I like to call it, intentional daydreaming. There are about as many different definitions of success as there are ways to be successful. Because of this, when I was creating the Living on Purpose course, I knew I needed the most simplistic definition that could be applied the most widely. So in the Living on Purpose course, we define success as the actualization of potential. All this means is, whatever you have the capacity to do currently, did you turn it into a reality? The reason I call defining your success intentional daydreaming is because it's really just an exercise in visualizing what turning your potential into a reality might look like. Most of the time, this vision is bigger than our actual potential at the moment, but with a little education, training, and/or support, we can get there. My version of defining your success was influenced by Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Habit 2, begin with the end in mind. But I think it's better defined by a quote from one of my former mentors who said, "You got to have a plan so you know how far off you are." In the Living on Purpose course, I teach how to use goals as nothing more than a means of measuring how far off you are from whatever that success picture was. As we discuss this week's personal, organizational, and leadership applications of defining your success, I want you to keep in mind that this step of the happiness success cycle is about recognizing your potential and capacity for success in relation to purpose values alignment. In all 3 examples I'm going to discuss, it is very important that a proper purpose values alignment has already been conducted in order for success to be defined effectively and realistically. Let's go ahead and take a look at that first example on the personal level. So I had this elaborate example of defining personal success plan for this episode about how my purpose role is changing, my kids are getting ready to go off to college, and I need to have a value shift of what's required of me is going to change. So I need to reshape my success picture. But I scrapped all of that because I'm living in an actual defining your success example right now. So why not talk about real life in real time? I am obviously not recording from my office this week as I was unable to get all of this taken care of on Wednesday before we departed on this trip. So here I sit recording this show on an Amtrak train, which has presented some unique obstacles. When we talk about defining our success, we have to consider what our capacity is. In the current environment I'm operating in, as I mentioned, I have a very unique environment with its own set of challenges that are limiting my capacity. I'm not going to get into that lengthy list, but one of the main ones is that I have limited Wi-Fi bandwidth to be able to upload this video, so I had to make it shorter. The success picture for this episode shifted from being able to give a detailed example that connects multiple steps of the happiness success cycle to just simply cover the content and get it out there. When we have to reshape our success picture, it's not that we're moving the goalposts, but we're understanding we have a new limited or increased capacity and we need to realign our vision to meet that so that we don't set ourselves up for failure. Let's take a look at how that recently played out at the organizational level in the airline industry. So if you're not familiar with the recent global technology outage situation, let me give you a little context. About 3 weeks ago, American cybersecurity company CrowdStrike put out an update that severely impacted Microsoft Windows computers that were running their software. This incident caused worldwide disruption across a wide variety of industries, but as I said, we're going to pull our example from the airline industry. If you pay any attention at all to current events, I'm certain you've heard about the mass amounts of ground stops, cancellation, and delays leaving passengers stranded around the world for up to several days. Unless, of course, you happen to be traveling on Southwest Airlines, whose computer system is apparently as old as their choose-your-own-adventure seating. They did not have to redefine their success and simply kept operating business as usual, getting people to where they needed to be. Kudos to Southwest. But let's talk about the companies that did have these major issues. I'm going to focus on Delta because, for one, they are my business's airline of choice, and they were the most severely impacted, to the point that the Secretary of Transportation and Congress had to get involved. Now, I'm certain a multi-billion-dollar company has tons of contingency plans in place for all kinds of crises, and this is not the first nationwide or global service stoppage they've experienced. but the nature of this particular crisis left them unable to resort to their usual secondary or possibly even tertiary success picture. If success is the actualization of potential, what can an organization that large do when the obstacle or crisis takes away all their potential to conduct their mission? The short answer is lower the standard. When we, as individuals, organizations, or leaders, lose some of our potential, we have to accept that the success picture must also be reduced. In the case of Delta, at every level, the mission and primary purpose shifted from transportation to customer service. Although I'm sure some top brass at Delta will tell you customer safety and service is always their top priority. The truth is, getting asses from point A to point B is their primary purpose, which is why they had to answer to the Secretary of Treasury and not the Secretary of Customer Service. Side note, whoever the next president is should definitely create a cabinet position for a Secretary of Customer Service and regulate that industry. But back to Delta. So how does the new success picture take shape that quickly for an organization of that size and to that magnitude? The new success picture becomes don't lose customers. Whatever we have to do to make sure they come back to us for their next air travel needs, do it. Or possibly just make sure we don't end up in litigation. The entire purpose shifts. The values of the organization shift, and getting the most good from whatever capacity your part of the organization has left is. Sometimes that means you have to take 2 steps back and punt to accept that as a success. In the case of Delta, getting systems back online, keeping customers informed and their basic needs met, and noting the effectiveness of corporate contingency plans all took precedence over getting asses from point A to point B because there was no ability to get asses from A to B. The really great organizations understand that success means different things in different circumstances, and you have to have plans in place to remain flexible and reduce or increase expectations as the organization's potential or capacity increases or decreases. The same can be said for leaders defining their success picture. As capability changes, so should the definition of success. This week's leadership application actually comes from a story I heard on National Public Radio, NPR, this past week about the mayor in a relatively small town in Italy. The port town of Monfalcone, I think I'm saying that right, is in far northwestern Italy and just a few kilometers from the Slovenian border. It's home to the largest shipyard in Italy and one of the largest in Europe. Along with this massive shipbuilding facility has come a significant influx of immigration to meet the labor need, particularly from Bangladesh. In recent months, the current mayor of Monfalcone has found herself the subject of sharp criticism because of comments she made and policies put in place about banning prayer in the Muslim worship centers that serve the Bangladeshi community. She's from a far right-wing party known for taking stances to preserve traditional or authentic Italian culture. On the outside, this might not seem like a bad idea, and in some communities, it may even be the best idea. However, in Monfalcone, the community is in fact very blended. The research I did, in addition to what was presented on NPR, found that the Bangladeshi community has been evolving there since the 1990s, and many workers actually go through the lengthy Italian residency process to obtain citizenship. The families and relatives of the shipyard workers that have also migrated there have come to set up their own small businesses that serve the community, both their Bangladeshi community and the greater Monfalcone community. In fact, Monfalcone is experiencing a second generation of Italian-born natives of Bangladeshi origin. On the economic side of this issue, if the original native community could or would fulfill the labor shortage, then the immigration situation may have never occurred in the first place. I say all of this to paint the clear context that the mayor, and in a bigger context, her party, seem to have not reshaped their success picture as the environment has dynamically changed over nearly 3 decades. As I have said before, the day you become a leader is the day it stops being about you. Leadership success pictures are really defined by the success pictures of the individuals and organizations you lead. In the case of the mayor, you could argue both sides. You could say that she is serving her party and her constituents, but you would be openly admitting to neglecting the needs and values of the Bangladeshis that also make up a very significant part of the city to which she is the elected leader. In this particular situation, effective leadership would consider the totality of all members of the community and find a happy medium. I've never been to Monfalcone, Italy, and I only know the little bit about their community from the research I conducted. So I don't know what the right answer is for them. But what I do know is that any leadership decision that marginalizes any portion of those you lead is creating a success picture that is ignorant at best, self-serving at worst, and highly likely to result in stress, friction, and failure. I appreciate everyone's understanding and sticking with me this week as I had to reshape my own success picture for this particular episode. Fortunately, we'll revisit this topic again in the future, and maybe I'll tell that detailed example some other time. The key takeaway from this week is that regardless of whether you're dealing with changes in your personal life or a technical glitch outside of your control that throws not only your organization but your entire industry into a global crisis, or you're just trying to figure out how to serve all the needs of the diverse citizens of your community, the process is still the same. The circumstances dictate your capacity and potential for success at any particular moment. It's up to each of us to carve out the time to do that intentional daydreaming and paint that beautiful picture of our wildest dreams. Because when we begin any endeavor with a positive end in mind, we're far more likely to find positive results. So take some time this week and sit with your dreams. Visualize and define your own success with whatever potential you have right now, and keep investing in yourself, because if you aren't bought in, you sold out.